We're gonna fix the two biggest problems in Rampage. The opening scene, a space station, a lone surviving crew member after a genetic experiment gone horribly right. Forced to risk her life for her research by her employers, Ripley evades the monster in a perilous series of events only to die because the rat monster scratched a hole in her escape pod's glass viewport. What a waste of a character and my time as an audience member. Why not have her survive? Let Ripley crash to Earth with one of the canisters. She lands at the zoo. George gets infected. The Rock helps Ripley to a hospital. When George starts to really mutate, The Rock goes to her for help. Cue the rest of the movie, except now we replace every scene with the irresponsible geneticist that lies and only exists to tell people information, with the space station surviving, monster fighting, science doing Ellen Ripley. She has a better motivation to hate the evil corporation that the audience would see, like the floating body parts on the space station, or how evil corporation risked her life for the monster mist. Less exposition, more interesting character. But how will the monsters get made if the shuttle doesn't explode? If the canisters are built to withstand re-entry, what about the others that were left on board the station? Did they just vaporize? No, that wouldn't make any sense. Use those to create the other two monsters. Problem solved. But Kate Caldwell's the one who knows how the monster mist works. We can safely assume that Ripley would know the same information, if not more, as Ripley was sent to space to run tests and wasn't fired 2 years ago. The second thing, the end. This movie exists to have three giant monsters fight each other and destroy a city. The Rock exists, so we have a human to follow through this ridiculous story that explains how this movie can exist. The difficulty lies in connecting The Rock to a giant monster fight. Have him use guns, he's a big guy. The only problem is that even though The Rock is a monstrous-sized human, he's not the size of a monstrous gorilla. It's kind of lame to watch a buff guy run around trying not to die while shooting a grenade launcher at a giant monster, intending to find a cure for the monster mist. The Rock and Ellen Ripley traveled to the evil corporation headquarters because Ripley says they were developing a cure there. Instead, they find more of the monster mist containers. This was their moment. Right here was where Rampage would become the movie of the decade. But it didn't. What would be cooler than a giant monster The Rock with his friend the giant monster gorilla fighting a giant monster wolf and a giant monster alligator? While it would also be the coolest thing to ever grace the silver screen, it would fit thematically. Director Brad Peyton, one of the few peoples to film The Rock in a helicopter multiple times, said that
the central kind of pillar of the movie is the relationship between Davis and George. Like, that's the heart of the movie. The movie's about trust and friendship.
What better way to show that The Rock still trusts George, is still his friend, than to undergo the same horrors that George did? Not just that, but The Rock would also face death and a potential life as a grotesque monster should he survive. Then with a badass line, George and giant monster The Rock jump out of the building, they kill the monsters and help people get out of the ruined city. Ripley gives The Rock a wink and goes off to develop a cure. We cut to 6 weeks later. George and The Rock are sitting in opposite beds at a hospital, normal sized. The comedian shows up. You boys save the world. George and The Rock do their fist bump thing, and the comedian follows up with, but are you ready to do it again? Rampage 2. Even biggerer.
P-I-Z-Z-A-P-R-T-Y